There's nothing you would do for rough grouse that would not benefit white-tailed deer community in a very positive manner. That's the thing that's we have to get that message out. And the biggest thing too is like when you manage a piece of property, like let's say you listen to this podcast and you're like, man, I'm sold. I want to do some stuff for grouse. And let's say you do X, Y, and Z and there's no grouse. And you go, well, what the hell? That's not how it works. It's about forest health. You know, when you're managing your piece of property for grouse, it's all truly about forest health. And that absolutely 110% benefits, all wildlife on your property, but more specifically your audience, the white-tailed deer community.
Welcome to the Habitat Podcast, the podcast for wildlife habitat management, hunting strategy, and land stewardship. And now, your host, Jared Van Hees.
Welcome to the Habitat Podcast.
I'm your host, Jared Van Hees, and we are here to become better habitat managers. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope everybody had a great holiday celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. We had an excellent Christmas up here at the Northern 70. Currently looking at all the projects I have to do here this next spring and summer. Already making the list. Habitat season is here. And we are getting after it very soon. I hope you guys are as well. We have a great podcast for you here today. We have my old good friends, Mr. Cody Altizer and Mr. Erich Long. They've been on the podcast before. They are talking today about grouse habitat, which is highly synergistic with deer habitat, but almost taking it one step further. We use the term micromanaging in this podcast. So enjoy this podcast. A lot of, forestry talk, early successional habitat, logging, timber, and how that can benefit more than just deer, which we talk about so often. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you coming back for this week's episode. I do want to say, if you are looking for some purchases for the spring, I'm always on Facebook Marketplace looking around, stuff like that. Look no further than the downburst cedar. I met with Doug up here on his birthday. We celebrated together, and that guy and that product are just top notch. I want to give a shout out to Doug, and I want to thank all of our listeners, everybody also who has been leaving us great reviews on Apple iTunes. I will be sending out free decals to everybody who leaves a review on this podcast app or Spotify. Just email me, info@habitatpodcast.com if you did leave a review, or send me a screenshot on Instagram or whatever, and I'll get you hooked up. So Happy New Year, guys. We'll be back next week with another great episode. Get out there, get those chainsaws fired up. Thanks for coming. So you're saying the new big buck game changer
Oh, yeah.
is
You heard it here first, people.
a
You
drumming
heard it
log.
here first. Yes. Yeah,
We
you
have
heard it here.
photographic evidence. I sent
What
Eric
are
a
you
picture
talking about?
a couple days ago. I'll send it to you guys both now. I put a camera on a drumming log that I had gotten grouse on historically, and I put the camera on the log, and it's way up on top of our property. I put it on the log back in September with no intention of checking it until now, just to see if, and grouse, they disperse during the fall, from their summer. They disperse from the brood, from their summer range, and when they go to find their own home range, the male grouse will start to find their own log. So there's either a residential grouse on the log that's going to claim it, or hopefully a new one. Unfortunately, no grouse showed up, but I did get a picture of the buck that I shot at the drumming log 2 days before I shot him. So to echo what Erich said, to attract big whitetails, find a rough grouse drumming log.
Yeah. Cody and I have always kind of joked that no one really cares about a grouse. And we always said if it had antlers and a beard, that maybe we could move the needle a little bit. But no, we found it. We found a new thing. You don't need scents. You don't need lures. You don't need a rattle. You don't need to do any of that stuff. You just put out a drumming log, and then these deer will you'll inventory. It's like a water hole. You'll inventory all the bobcat. You'll inventory all the owls, hawks, bear, house cats. What else do we have on there? Yeah.
You guys aren't kidding either. Both of these logs have big bucks next to them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's the new thing. You heard it here first.
I have evidence. I'm looking at evidence right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Patent pending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. This is how it's going to be, right? This is the
it's usually how it goes with you two.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's do a quick introduction. You guys have been on before. Erich Long, Cody Altizer. I mean, I'm going back episode 46, episode 113. I want to say there's been more between 108, maybe. I want to say there's been more between there. I don't even know anymore. Once you get to like 350 of these, you start to get a little hazy.
Is that what you're at? You're at what?
Yeah, 360, 365, somewhere in there right now.
Yeah, it's like Joe
That's
Rogan.
crazy.
Yeah, something like that. Less of a budget. How about that?
That's right. You had Shane Gillis on the other day, didn't you?
Yeah, that was my buddy Andy. Yeah, we're this is a Joe Timu experience over here.
Oh shoot. No, thank you for having us on, man. I really do appreciate it. That's for sure. Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've all of us sat down. That's for sure.
So Erich, you're still in Ohio, correct?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right.
Yeah. I try to convince my wife to move at least once every 2-3 weeks, but it's not seemed to be sticking very well.
You gonna come up here or are you gonna go down south?
Oh no. We visit the state up north. We're not gonna make residence to that. But
Gotcha.
No, I tell you what, I would love trying to convince her to like Kansas, Missouri. That ain't happening, no, man. That's just not happening. It's a retirement place, apparently. So yeah. But, no, Texas is wonderful too. I haven't been there in the summertime. I love Texas, but I have not been there in the summer, so maybe I wouldn't.
Yeah. Nor have I. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's pretty sticky.
It is. I'm sure it is sticky.
Yeah. Gosh.
And your email, I saw your email address, your new one. Are you slinging properties these days?
Yeah, I've been doing it since 2015.
Oh, so that's not new.
Yeah. It's because what was happening was, doing the consulting, let's just say you're the broker of Mossy Oak Properties and Cody's a deer client. It's like, man, I'm looking for land. So I'm like, hey, talk to Jared. And then next thing you know, I was seeing Jared and Cody make money. And it's like, wait a minute here. And then Brian Bauer is the gentleman who runs the show, and his son Tristan Bauer. And they're like, get your real estate license. I'm like, yeah, why not? Because I have nothing else to do. Right. So I've been doing it for a while, but with my state job and all this other stuff, I can only do so much, because of conflict of interest and a bunch of other stuff. So I do a handful a year.
Cool.
Yeah, make that. But consulting's pretty much dead in the water. Drumalog is a little bit, but so it picked up where that left off.
So why is consulting dead? Would you say because of the influx of consultants over the last 5-6 years?
No, that's another subject for another day. That's around a fire with some alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's not burn this bridge right out the gates.
Crash and burn 5 minutes in. All right.
Yeah. Hey, click. No, it's a lot of things. It is. It's an influx of consultants, and I think a lot of people they hire a deer consultant, which they are, but it's a deer hunting consultant, and that's not me, So
yep.
More habitat, and let's do some fun stuff, research, whatever on your property or whatever, and keep it simple. It depends on the client. Yeah, no,
cool.
Just where do I plant my miscanthus and put my box plant? So
there's some of that. That's for sure.
So long too. I mean, how long you been doing it for?
Yeah, and I'm semi-retired from it anyway. I've been doing this stuff for over 30 years.
Wow.
You get burnt out and stuff. Yeah, I'm the old guy. I look so young, right? Young and spry.
Yeah, the camera does wonders for you.
Oh yeah, not so much here. You see me leaning this way.
Much here. Yeah.
This is my good side.
I hear you.
Oh, yeah. Are you guys still dabbling in the consulting stuff too?
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that going?
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, you guys are probably rocking and rolling, unlike myself. But.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I do enough every year to that I want to keep doing it. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
take on a ton. I don't want to get burnout. Time, like you said too, with the kids and everything else. So yeah, a lot of it is it used to be more all over. Lately, it's been a lot more local to Michigan. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
There was a time in my heyday when I was on top of a mountain waving a flag, man. I was flying to Houston and jumping on another plane to go to Minneapolis and meet some stranger and then flying to, here to there. I was just, yeah, it was, it was sad. At least you're cognizant of your family where I wasn't. It was just like out of a movie. My wife and I were looking at photo albums a couple years ago, and I remember flipping them like, I don't remember any of this. And she said, you weren't around.
no.
It's like, you don't have to be so mean about it. It's like, so you're saying you hated me? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. But yeah, I wasn't around. It's always nice to do them home,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, then you have Cody.
Mr. Cody.
Then he's the one that lives the dream.
Yeah, where
Well,
were
yeah.
you recently, Cody, when Eric's like he's back from working? We're good to do the
Oh.
podcast now. Eric's like your secretary over there.
Yeah. He's my spokesperson, my assistant.
There you go. Agent.
You don't talk to him, you talk to me first. All right?
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
I should have said agent, not secretary. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah. I said my people will get hold of your people.
Yes, you did.
No, I was early this month, I was in Western Kansas.
Okay.
Filming a deer hunt. And I'm the epitome of a jack of all trades, master of none. I do under the umbrella of freelance photography and film. I do a lot of hunting and conservation, film, mainly film work, a little photo here and there, but it's rare. The majority of what I do is, filming hunts all over the world, and not so much deer and turkey, even though I did a deer hunt in Western Kansas, but, I do a lot of work for a guy who lives out in California who is in pursuit of the Weatherby, which is, a lifetime hunting and conservation achievement award, more or less. It's about species collecting and contributing so much to conservation. And he is trying to, and more or less, collect all the huntable species in the world, which there are a lot of them, several hundred. And I forget what he's at now. It's 350, close to 350 different species or something. So anyway, I tag along with him to some really cool places. And that's what's really cool is, when I was a kid, I didn't imagine filming hunts for a living, and not to diminish it because it is the majority of what I do, but it's, again, filming, and no knock to people who do it, but filming deer and turkey hunts is not my speed. There's a lot of other things I would rather be doing, but the places that we have gotten to go and the hunts I've gotten to film are in some really cool places all over the world for some really cool animals that, prior to meeting this guy, I had no idea a lot of these animals even existed, much less that you could go hunt and shoot them. So that's a lot of what I do. In the same breath of you guys trying to stay home and travel less, I do a lot of real estate, photography and film close to home, which is super. See some amazing properties, some amazing country, and get to sleep in my own bed at the end of the day, which is always a blessing. So
I think the coolest place that I think from listening to all your stories all these years, to Pakistan. You slept in a cave, man. You slept in
Pakistan. Pakistan. Gosh, that was 5 years, almost 6 years ago. I don't know if I want to make you guys happy. I can't imagine it would make you happy, make you sad in saying this. We are closer to 2030 than we are to 2020. Isn't that crazy to think about? Because that trip was in 2020 and all that went on in the world in 2020. But that trip to Pakistan was coming up on, I guess almost 6 years ago now. But Pakistan was cool. On the Arctic, that's one of my favorites. I was in the Arctic last spring. And if I'm honest, before that trip, I was not afraid to use the word scared, because the Arctic's cold. And once you get out on the ice, where it was going to be probably 10 days, maybe up to 2 weeks. Once you're cold, you're cold. And I was afraid of extreme cold. I don't know how cold it was because we didn't have a thermometer with us in the Arctic. But it's at the end of the trip, I was sad to leave the Arctic to come home to Virginia. Wow. Never would have thought I would have said that prior to. Eric knows how much I love the Old Dominion in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I was like, daggone it. You mean I got to go? I got to leave this cold, gray, white, barren land of tundra and go home. And it was the spring. So it was late April, May. So I got to leave cold, white ice of the Arctic and go home to green, sunny Virginia. I was honestly a little bummed. That was one of my favorite trips, but
Yeah.
Well, what was the coolest about it? Like, why was it, like you said, gray, tundra, winter, cold?
Yeah, I don't know. It's the people, our guide was an Inuit and he was just super, one of the coolest people I've ever met. And I don't know, just the nothingness, the simplicity of all of it. Cause it was, there were days we didn't see the sun for 4 or 5 days. It was just gray, cloudy. You saw 2 colors, white and gray. And I guess black and
It's
brown.
Ohio.
With some rocks.
Yeah, it's Michigan right now.
Right.
Yeah, it really is.
But I don't know. We were hunting Arctic grizzly. Never saw one, never saw a track. We shot a really, really big muskox. So we would see a lot of muskox, didn't see a lot of wildlife. Obviously there weren't a lot of plant life to see, but it was just, I guess, therapeutic, the simplicity of it all. We did close to 1,000 miles on snowmobile. So we get up in the morning, hop on the snow machine, and you're driving, trying to cut a grizzly track. It's the only way, and the off chance you could see them. That's how you find them, is to cut a track and follow them. And I thought about everything of significance under the sun on my snow machine, and I'm positive I zoned out for hours at a time and thought about absolutely nothing. So I would just hop on and you drive, and the company was good, the food was not, but it's one of those things. It's like you're in it and you're like, man, how many people in the world get to do what I'm doing? And as uncomfortable as it was, cold, I didn't realize it at the time because, again, you're not looking at yourself, how weathered I was when I came out of it. Like I just had sunburn and windburn, like from my eyes down because I had my goggles on the snow machine. My skin was peeled and red, but I felt like $1,000,000 and more alive than I ever had. So I'm hoping to go back at some point. It was just one of those trips. It's like, man,
he always says,
pretty cool.
He says that he was scared. Like he goes to Mexico, Pakistan, Africa. I would love to go to Mexico and kill my golds and desert mule deer, but I'm afraid to go to Mexico. I'm going to get off the plane and I have sex slave written all over me. I get off the plane, I stick out. It's like and then I'm done. It's gone.
You're just glowing white.
I know. It's like, oh my God, that's my biggest fear is I go to Mexico. Yeah, I'm going to the Arctic to be cold. I'm scared of that. You're crazy. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, guys. I'm glad to hear you guys are doing well and hanging in there with the best of them. I know. Always have good conversations. We've known each other for quite a long time now, and you guys are up to something new, which I always love. The Give for Grouse campaign is what I'm gonna call it. Is that how you would start it, by framing the whole thing, or how would you explain the new program here and what you guys are up to? Let's get into it.
Yeah, we are. If you guys are familiar with us or have listened to Erich and I together or separately on this podcast, we are Cody and Erich, as has been established. We used to be the Deer Hunter Project, which deer was DEAR. That's what we operated under for several years. Started that in 2019, did a podcast, did short films, did management content. That had our hands in a lot of different things, a lot of irons in the fire. But as we were late to the game on podcasts there, as I'm sure you guys know, the management content is so saturated, like with consultants. There's everybody doing this stuff. It's a dime a dozen, and we were late to the game. So, hard to stick out, hard to establish yourself. But for me, we never had a clear focus, which for me is an enormous pet peeve. I would rather not do something than to do something unintentionally or not be deliberate about it. Like I said, we did a little of this, we did a little of that, and then we did some in the middle. Never had a clear focus. And, throughout all of it, ruffed grouse were kind of on mine and Erich's radar at the time. If I'm honest, they weren't super important to us. We just kind of knew about them. Erich, of course, having drumming log wildlife management, was the name of his consulting company. He started back in 2001. I've had grouse on my property, but they weren't super important to us. But throughout Eric and I working together, rough grouse just kind of started popping up in terms of management. Eric found a log and started filming them, and rough grouse were important to me and my land ownership and management journey and all that goes into that. And it was never an intentional decision to pursue, uh, you know, a grouse journey. It's just they kept kind of popping up and like, oh, cool, here's grouse. Let's throw a clip of a grouse and see, on our social media, and people loved it. And then as part of our podcast, early on, we had Ben Jones on, the president of the Rough Grouse Society. And it was just a pretty general episode. At the time, we had somebody on from PF, Lindsay Thomas from QDMA, I think a couple other people from, the conservation orgs. They were just general episodes just to kind of catch up and, you know, shoot the SHIT. And we had Ben on, and at the time, Eric and I, especially in Appalachia, knew about grouse, knew they weren't doing well, but again, they weren't a priority, just candidly. And Eric asked him, what's the future of the rough grouse? And Ben said, if current projections hold in our lifetime, they will be zero, not extirpation, but extinction. And that was again 2020. And, we that kind of lit a fire under Eric and I to see what we could do for rough grouse, the species, its management. And again, even back then, it wasn't an intentional decision to like, let's go all in on this. It's like, it seems like they need some help. Let's see what we can do. Started doing some fundraisers with RGS and without RGS, kind of in an official and unofficial capacity. And throughout all of it, as we got our hands involved in grouse, I can speak for Eric too, just the more we got our hands involved in them, the more passionate I became about their management, about the species itself, and then branching off of that about forest management. And then, the last couple of years, we have done some fundraisers, putting habitat on the ground for grouse. And, with the Deer Hunter Project, Eric and I were like, we've done a little bit of everything, but don't have, a straight and narrow on what we want to do. But this grouse stuff, like, let's sink our teeth into it. People have an appetite for content for it, but, how they can help, about their management, about forest management. As you know, Jared, with deer, we did a podcast about deer goggles and grouse goggles. People put their deer goggles on and they say, what can I do for deer on my property to have big deer, shoot big deer, grow more deer, whatever the case may be. I started to take those deer goggles off and put on grouse goggles, and I'd walk my woods and be like, is this good enough for grouse? Is this thick enough for grouse? The food sources here, is it providing food for grouse? And people, the little bit that Eric and I did, we found that people have an appetite for that as well. So press fast forward, speed it all up, all that to say, to this day, we decided to create the Give for Grouse initiative, where we want to advocate for the species, especially in Appalachia, North Carolina to Ohio, PA, and everywhere in between, because that's where rough grouse are struggling the most in terms of population. I don't know if you got any up where you're at or how they're doing in Michigan. They're doing better than they are down here. So in Appalachia, trying to give rough grouse a voice and advocate for their future, while branching off of that and advocating for healthy forests and promoting sound forest management and supporting loggers and the logging community and everything that goes along with that. Foresters, from wood procurement foresters to wildlife focused foresters, and just using the rough grouse as a poster child to move that whole movement forward.
I love it.
Yeah, I think the only thing I could, well said, Cody, piggyback on is that, you give God all the credit on this, because it was everything. When we were doing the Deer Hunter Project, it ended up at grouse. It ended up at grouse. It's like we're being pushed and being pushed and being pushed. And it's finally, like Cody's like, we had that long conversation, like, what's the future, and it's like, it was so black and white. Like, we need to put all our eggs in this basket and let's rock, and so far it's been crazy. I mean, we're gonna, come 2026, which is in a couple days, we'll be, doing a lot more. You'll see us a little bit more, I'm sure.
Awesome.
And yeah, so yeah, we just kind of leased some stuff. And I'll let Cody, he's real good at talking about the billboard campaign and everything. But yeah, no, it's just Yeah, we having so many hands, we were just all over the place, and it was frustrating, trying to solve this
Yeah.
problem, solve that problem. And it's like, yeah, man, we're going nowhere, you know, watching a habitat podcast, those guys go above us. It's like, no, that stops here, you know?
Hey, you got it. When everybody else is going right, you're going left, right?
That's right. Right.
I like it. No, I like it. Somebody has to be the voice for them. And I don't know, are there any other initiatives out there that are similar to what you guys are doing? I mean, as landowners and conservationists, I think we all, if we're even deer guys, can get on board with some of the things that come from, better grouse habitat. So, like, what are you guys
Yeah.
seeing out there? Are people catching on and starting to learn with some of the stuff you're putting out?
Yeah, I would, and Cody chime in. I, First of all, the main voice for the rough grouse is the Rough Grouse Society. They were founded in Virginia. Now they're in the Pittsburgh area, right? I think, Cody, right? I think they're in Pennsylvania.
PA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask me.
All right.
All you guys
So-
get lumped together up there. It's cold and dark and gray.
Yeah. Yeah. But so they're like the main voice of it. And I'm sure there's some people, you got the American Woodcock Society as a branch of that, they do not similar projects, but they're hand in hand when it comes to the management aspect of it, but they have their own chapter and stuff, but the umbrella is the Rough Grouse Society. Um I'm sure there's somebody out there, but that's, and we had, talks with the Rough Grouse Society recently, and it's like we are no by any stretch of the means competition. We want to be a tool in the management toolbox for you guys, and let's see what we can get done for that. But to answer your question about the deer community, Cody puts on, he used that analogy, the deer goggles and grouse goggles. They're almost practically similar. It's just, it's taking your property. This is a good way of looking at it. It's taking your property to another level. It's micromanagement because there's nothing, I can't think of anything offhand that is put on the spot here that's you would do for rough grouse that would not benefit whitetail deer community in a very positive manner. That's the thing that's we have to get that message out. And the biggest thing too is like when you manage a piece of property, like let's say you listen to this podcast, you're like, man, I'm sold. I want to do some stuff for grouse. And let's say you do X, Y, and Z, and there's no grouse, and you go, well, what the hell? That's not how it works. It's about forest health. When you're managing your piece of property for grouse, it's all truly about forest health, and that absolutely 110% benefits all wildlife on your property, but more specifically your audience, the whitetail deer community, for sure.
Yeah, it's no, that's a good point. We talked about it in one of our recent podcasts, which we only have 3, the Gift for Grouse podcast. We're a baby, but our most recent one we talked about, was kind of rough grouse management 101, and rough grouse, they're a specialist species. Deer are a generalist species, and like Erich said, rough grouse, if you have a piece of property and you want to manage it for rough grouse, you're micromanaging it for all other wildlife, and everything benefits as a result, like Erich said. And that's Erich said in our podcast, and that's an important thing to drive home, especially where he and I are from, because rough grouse are a non-migratory bird. You could have phenomenal rough grouse habitat, but if they're not in the neighborhood, they don't fly around looking for a young forest or a clear cut. That's not to say that they won't respond or move in to good grouse habitat, but like deer, if you create an environment suitable for deer respond. You can have phenomenal habitat and it's a vacuum and sucks them in from everywhere. That doesn't work necessarily for rough grouse just because of the species, but creating that young forest ecosystem is the goal, and everything benefits off of that as a result. And I made this point in our podcast. It's a part of our property where we've always had grouse, and where I've kind of been doing some micromanagement and fine tuning it for grouse. Grouse have always been there, so I can't really take credit for grouse being there currently, but I've done some clear cuts of invasive species control, some crop tree release, everything under the sun. But within the past year, I've seen, there've always been grouse there, but had some rough grouse chicks. So the next generation, I saw some chicks back during the spring, saw a woodcock a year and a half ago, where I shot my buck this year, 5.5-year-old. Back during the spring, I had a trail camera video of a turkey hen, and 12 or 13 poults. There was a sow, black bear, and 3 cubs, all as a result of ruffed grouse management. More specifically, or more accurately, a healthy young forest ecosystem. So if you want to, manage your property for ruffed grouse, as your audience, Jared, as if your passion is deer, which was mine and Erich's, still is mine and Erich's, don't necessarily manage your property for deer. Find a specialist species, manage it for rough grouse. If you're in the Southeast, manage your property for bobwhite quail, or, a pollinator species or a songbird species. Make those micromanagement decisions, and then your property becomes that vacuum for everything God made under the sun. And it's really cool to see it all happen.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that would be different is that, instead of hiring consultants like you, me, and the millions of other people that are doing deer consulting, you're hiring a specialist in the forest community, like a private forester, a state service forester, and you're having conversations with him and her, like, I want to get maybe some financial income from maybe the possible cut on my property, but I want to manage it mostly for wildlife, grouse, stuff like that. And again, everything benefits. And Cody just gave you a bunch of examples, but I think you're just switching gears just a little bit of who you would hire to come out to your property. It's just a different, again, we're going to use probably this cheesy analogy, but it's just putting a different set of goggles on for the same species, really. You're just, it's just a different lens. That's it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there. I've been hired, NRCS agents out there. I mean, you don't really have to hire them; they're kind of free. Foresters, etc. Every time you can get in the woods with one of these folks, you're learning something. And yeah, we understand that sunlight needs to hit the forest floor, but if you can take that to the next step of invasive control, or there's all these little nuances that you might not even know about without getting one of these folks on the ground with you. And I think that it's just, anytime I can walk in the woods with a forester, NRCS agent, or biologist, I'm just listening, and there's always extra stuff there. It doesn't hurt at all. And your deer habitat's gonna increase. When you say micromanagement, what exactly do you mean by micromanagement?
I would say it's just, how do you word this? You say, like, for whitetail deer, I'm going to go in and do some sunlight hit the forest floor cuts. It's having more of a purpose. Having a little bit more of a purpose, and how do I, make different species benefit from that cut? What's the next step in invasive control? It's with whitetail deer, you don't have to. Like, let's say, oh man, I'm butchering this really bad. It's smaller scale type management, okay? Because with rough grouse, you want a piece of property to flow. So that rough grouse depends on, what time of year, whether they have chicks, for brooding habitat, everything should flow. With whitetail deer, yeah, it should flow, obviously, but you don't need that flow because they can get from point A to B, hopefully safely without getting shot, or with a predator type situation, predator prey situation. But yeah, it's just smaller scale type management. It's like, what's next? What do we need to do with that that piece of habitat on your piece of property? It's just taking it to another level of thinking that it. And I'll let Cody jump in on that to fix my blunder there, but it's that. Go ahead. I've just had a brain fart. Don't get old.
I know what you're saying. No,
it's just, I just butchered that to death. I just had a brain fart. Go ahead. Take it from
No,
here.
I mean, it's, micromanagement, and Erich used the example with deer, and you can micromanage your property for deer, but say you have a property and you're managing it for deer. Deer is your focus, and the other species are unimportant. Deer, again, are a generalist species, and deer do quite well without a lot of our management. If we're honest with ourselves, a lot of the management that we do, the three of us included, they're to see more deer, have bigger deer, keep deer away from our neighbors, and help us shoot more deer. I mentioned it on our podcast, deer, and I hope people understand what I'm trying to communicate. Deer don't need a lot of our management. Deer don't need a food plot. Deer, a supplemental food source such as a food plot has enormous benefits to deer. That's not to say, that it doesn't have utility. From a hunting, setup and situation, obviously it's advantageous. But they can fill in, if you want to get to the nitty gritty, they fill in stress gaps, stress periods, late winter, early spring. There's a green food source, late summer, early fall. Supplemental food sources have tremendous value and utility to a deer. I can do a clear cut, and that's going to be literally tons of food per acre for deer, increased fawning habitat for deer. It's going to increase my biological carrying capacity. Water sources, obviously, can alleviate a stress period. Thermal cover, everything we do for deer is helpful to the species. But then again, I live in town, and I can see a deer in my backyard eating fescue out of my backyard, and giant deer. So that's, deer don't necessarily need a lot of the management decisions that we make, if we're honest with ourselves. That's not to diminish the work that we do or say to stop doing it. By all means, all wildlife needs all the work and help and habitat that we can give them. But deer do okay without us. And a lot of times it's interesting. This would be a different, your more managed properties, I think this would be a different podcast or episode or topic to unpack. Your more managed properties, I think, sometimes results in more stressed animals, if we're honest with ourselves, because everything is so stacked and what's the word? What's the word? Starts with a C. Congested. You know what I mean? But that's a random tree stand thought I had the other day. So all that to say, micromanagement for grouse, the management we do for grouse or bob white quail or monarchs or any specialist species, that management is management that they need. So I view invasive species control as micromanaging your property. For deer, you could have an autumn olive thicket, and deer are going to be quite okay and do quite well in autumn olive. A sea of Japanese stilt grass across the forest floor. I see fawns bedded in stilt grass a lot. Not advocating for it, but it drives home the point that deer do okay when there's an influx of invasive species or relatively poor quality habitat. Rough grouse do not. So they need, that Japanese stilt grass to be removed. Deer can do well with just, acorns as a primary fall food source and winter browse browse throughout the rest of the year. But grouse, those food sources change throughout the year. They need soft mass. They need leafy vegetation, herbaceous growth during the spring and summer. They need soft mass from any of the native shrubs. Late summer, early fall, they need hard mass during the fall and winter to build up fat. So you're really unpacking the species and its habitat needs, and the species needs more acutely, I guess. Deer, You're looking at it, during the spring is fawning season. You want high protein during the summers, antler growing during the falls, the rut. So it's a pretty generalist view of how you're evaluating the species and its habitat needs. For grouse, you certainly can look at it more generally, but unpacking it a little bit further, and you find that, I got a lot of acorns during the fall, which is great for deer and would be super for grouse. But what does grouse have to eat from, February, March to October? May or may not be a lot in your woods. So we need to do some cutting. We need to do some management to increase soft mass. And then, your cover requirements, again, deer as a bedding area, sometimes they bed in thick, nasty cover. Sometimes I've seen mature bucks just sunning themselves in the sun in an open woodlot, comfortable and cool as can be. A grouse sunning itself in a mature open woodlot isn't going to last very long. You know what I mean? So you got to micromanage or, be more intentional in how you're creating cover. So I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah. It's just, unpacking each habitat need for the species and the species seasonal need a little bit further. And again, it's not to say you can't do it for deer. We all do, but grouse need it, a little bit more, and you're just making those more intentional decisions.
Yeah, we talked about, like, in a past podcast with you and other stuff consulting, we always say the more diverse your property is, the more beneficial more attractive it will be. And Jared just said, you know what, I've had enough. I'm just leaving. More diverse your property is, the more attractive it will be. And you have a rough grouse that is, that eats plus or minus around 300 species of food. So you're putting more fauna, you're creating a better ecosystem. This is a good way of looking at it. You're creating a better ecosystem on your property by doing rough grouse management or forest health management. So all species of wildlife will benefit during any time of the year. For stressful times of year like this year, if you're doing rough grouse management, your deer herd on your property is going to do exceptional because it's eating woody browse that's at their level. When you're talking about, like Cody mentioned, fawning ground, when you micromanage your piece of property and all that stilt grass and stuff, you have all those beneficial broadleafs come popping up, and that's beneficial for white-tailed deer, but it's crucial for them, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just taking it to another level of, yeah.
Are you thinking about saddle hunting but haven't taken the plunge yet? Well, I can assure you, latitudeoutdoors.com is right where I would start if I were you. I got my brand new Method 3 2-panel saddle this year, the most comfy saddle on the market, ready to go this fall. Also, guys, I've been rocking the Method 2 for years. Method 3 came out, it couldn't get any better? Well, it did. This thing is insane. Check it out, latitudeoutdoors.com, but don't forget the Profile Saddle platform and their brand new Ranger 33 packs. I run the Ranger 22 right now, and I'm definitely looking at the Ranger 33 to add to my arsenal for this fall. Check them out, guys. Great people, a great company, Michigan-based, and they're already whacking bucks this season. latitudeoutdoors.com. Have you ever been in a hurry to get a bunch of expensive seed down and not know exactly how much to put down? Or you get it down and you run out before you're halfway across the field? I have, and I'm done with it. I'm now using the Downburst Seeder DS860 drop seeder. Guys, I've been using the 860 now for 2 years, and this thing is bad to the bone. All aluminum, handcrafted here in northern Michigan. I will be planting switchgrass with mine. Doug and I were talking today about, prepping the ground for switchgrass, getting it on. Switchgrass is like $180 for 10 pounds. That's pretty expensive seed. I'm not just gonna willy-nilly throw it out there. So my Downburst behind my ATV or tractor or side-by-side will be exact 99% accurate with this seeder for any sort of expensive seeds. You can run any of our Vitalize mixes through there. You can run expensive seeds like alfalfa, clover, brassicas, and get exact rates. Don't end up with golf ball sized turnips anymore. Get the correct rate down and don't waste your money by wasting seed. Downburst DS860 drop seeder, brand new code HP100 at checkout. HP100, $100 off a Downburst seeder. Check them out at downburstseeders.com.
I should have had Cody talk first.
I think that was well explained. I mean, we know what the term micromanagement means, but I guess I was looking for examples, and you guys provided those. And like you said, more acutely, it's like, okay, I did the bulk of the work, but there's more fine tuning with this species. It sounds like, and if you had a bunch of guys like me who cut their woods, and we talk about logging. Shoot, probably the biggest subject we talk about in this podcast these days. What would you say most guys could do? One or two examples to be more acute. That next step, if you're looking through the deer goggles, or what's the most common one or two things that you're like, guys, you're almost there, but you could do A or B as well.
I would say, for one, invasive species, they've been around for forever and they're not going anywhere. And even still, I don't think we know just how damaging they are to an entire ecosystem. Yeah, I think maybe after our lifetime, there'll come out some research or we'll learn more and we'll learn, again, I'm just kind of throwing stuff up against the wall here or speculating, but we know how damaging they are. I think they're even more so than what we're aware of right now. But I think invasive species for sure, because I use stilt grass as an example, mainly because of how problematic it can be and how unfortunately well it responds to disturbance. You do a cut, whether it's commercial or you do it yourself, sunlight hits the forest floor. That's the first thing you got. More times than not, filling in that empty space is stilt grass. And if you got to look at, again, grouse goggles, walk through your woods and look at the environment and the habitat through the lens of a rough grouse. You're a little itty bitty bird. A deer, it's no problem. An adult turkey, maybe even it's not that limiting. To turkey poults, it certainly is, but to a rough grouse, it's a death sentence. Even an adult grouse, in some of my woods, I've sprayed stilt grass that's 2 or 3 feet tall. That it's unusable habitat to a rough grouse. And then grouse chicks, same as turkey poults, it's this thick, matted grass across the forest floor that they can't navigate through. And during the spring, it's wet, it's damp. Even if in situations where they get soaking wet, they can't dry themselves off. They can die from hypothermia, or it trips them up and they can't evade predators. And we mentioned it in our podcast. A rough grouse home range is, again, micromanaging your property is relatively small compared to that of a deer. Depending on habitat quality, it can be 20 acres up to 100. You want it to be as small as possible because, as Erich said, the less they travel, the less susceptible they are to predation. But say you have 50 acres and, not all of it's stilt grass, but you have 50 acres and it adds up quickly. An acre here, a half an acre here, a third of an acre here. You have 50 acres of what you may think is, well, I got 50 acres, let's manage it for grouse. Well, of that 50, maybe only half of it is suitable for grouse. The rest they can't navigate through. So, it's getting rid of that stilt grass frees up, and Erich mentioned it, brooding habitat, especially for chicks. They need bare soil. They need umbrella plants that they can navigate through. Stilt grass is a limiting factor to that habitat type. Stilt grass inhibits native regeneration. There's some cuts on my, little patch clear cuts that I've done. What's come up? Stilt grass. I'm not getting as many of those, seedlings to sapling stage to get that high stem density. So, for one, I can definitely think of addressing your invasive species. Stilt grass comes to mind. Number one, because it is so limiting to a rough grouse is daily needs and its habitat needs as an adult, from chicks to its adult life cycle, or throughout the entire life cycle. And then throughout all that, it's displacing the native vegetation, the native food sources, the native cover that rough grouse needs. So that comes to mind. And then Erich mentioned it too, the more diversity or the more diverse your property is, the more attractive it's going to be for wildlife. Grouse, as Erich mentioned, they eat, I think they're omnivorous. They eat leafy vegetation. They eat soft mass and berries and nuts. And I think insects are down the list, but insects are number one food source for chicks. But, don't focus so much on just acorns or just white oak acorns. A diverse young forest having hard mass, soft mass, different types of cover. I think there's a difference between early successional and, I view early successional as a stage of what a lot of my clear cuts are in. They were clear cut 5 years ago. They've been burned. It's a lot of broom sedge, a lot of bunch grasses, a lot of brambles, some hardwood regeneration, but a lot of forbs, grasses, and briars. Young forest is a lot of baby trees. Have a little bit of both of that. Have some early successional, have some young forest. So, to answer it in short, have as much diversity as you can. Have some open, have some mature open woodland environments, some big oaks with big crowns where there's space for other wildlife to navigate underneath, and have some of that thicker the better type of cover.
Yeah, I think that another thing that the habitat stuff is what Cody mentioned, but I think that for people that are like, hey, I'm interested in this, is to find that love again and we mentioned it in our podcast, and we've said it a couple times in the past, but you remember, Jared, when we got to remember back in the, now it's NDA, but QDMA, the Quality Whitetails magazine.
Oh yeah.
You know how excited you were when you got that?
Oh yeah.
Like,
It was
I
like
mean,
the
I
only
remember,
magazine I've ever subscribed to that
right?
often, or that
Yeah.
consistently.
I mean, I've said this before, but I remember calling my wife, and because my boss got like his first, and I'm like, did I get it in the mail? And she's like, no. And I'm like, mother, like that, because you were excited. That's the next step. You're going to learn through what I'm about to tell you, like what Cody was talking about, like invasives. You ask a forester, and he or she's going to say exactly what Cody said. Cody's spot on. But when it comes to, you got to find that love. Like, we've hit the deer world, and I'm speaking out loud. I have no data or just a public opinion of it. It's like we hit a ceiling. Okay. And when we hit that ceiling, then we're like, hey, we can help others do things and stuff like that. But there is a ceiling of the knowledge. I don't know if I worded that right. But when it comes to switching gears, putting those grouse goggles on, if you will, you're finding that love. Like you mentioned just a little bit ago, when you had an NRCS person or a forester come in, you're quiet and you'll listen, right? Because you're excited. I've been in this business for over 30 years. And when I talk to a forester, I, it's not my nature to shut up, but it's just, I'm asking a gazillion questions, and I'm supposed to air quote know everything. I'm like asking this girl or this guy, like, what? Oh my God, I'm finding love again. Like, I'm finding something new that I had no idea. This whole world, and it's going to benefit what? Oh my gosh. It's like getting that QDMA, that Quality Whitetails magazine again. Man, there's nothing that you wouldn't do. Look what you and Al and Brian, all that created from that love, right? I mean, that's what's going to happen again. You're going to have a forester come out to your property, and you're going to go, what? Oh my God, I didn't know that. You're going to find that love. You're going to find that passion, that drive to learn about what Cody was talking about, the stoat grass and how to kill invasives correctly, when to kill them correctly. Why are you, all this stuff. That's what the reaction of all that is, the trickle down effect. So.
I love that. You're totally right. And I think that Cody made a great reference there. Itty bitty, get down towards the ground. How often are we looking at the bottom 12 inches? Deer's 5 foot limit or whatever on habitat, give or take. But when you get down and those young chicks can't move through the habitat because this is stilt grass or a similar type of problem versus natives where they can run below them all and hide and get away from predation. It's like you guys said, fine tuning, getting the magnifying glass up, getting a little closer, diving a little deeper, kind of that next step, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of this stuff we've talked about here over the years and the people we've attracted, we have all kinds of people who know a ton, but we're also attracting a lot of folks who don't know anything and are learning, like I was when I started. So I think this campaign and your podcast and is kind of the next thing. Okay, I cut. Now what? It seems like the aspen regeneration, the clear cuts, patch cutting, things like that seem to be one of the main commonalities between what we talk about more often than not, and then what you guys are focusing on.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's my property. We've it's where I grew up. I've walked every inch of it. And again, grouse to me, they weren't my passion until recently. So, I know my property well, like the back of my hand, prior to, let's just say 45 years ago. But I was looking at, again, deer goggles. I was looking at through those deer goggles and, is this tree good for a stand, or where are my oaks that I can release, or this or that and the other. Now with the grouse goggles, I get thrilled when I see some sumac or something, or a service berry or spice bush. I have a lot of spice bushes where I got some grouse now. Spice bush for deer is some good cover, but not, Erich, again, to go back to your question, what can people do? Erich said this for a long, long time, cover that equals food, for deer, and not every species, or, not every plant species checks this box, but for deer, spice bush is cover, but it's not food. for grouse, a big white oak is food, but it's not cover. But for rough grouse, spice bush is that food and cover. It checks both boxes. It's great cover for grouse, and it is that late summer, early fall food source. So if I were looking at my property just through those deer goggles, I'd see spice bush like, oh man, it's good cover, good fawning cover. It's a thicket, for a bedding area, but you wouldn't be super psyched about it. But for grouse, I'm like, I get psyched about it because I'm like, man, there's a lot of cover here for grouse. There's food here for grouse. It checks a habitat requirement year round. There's bare soil underneath of it with some herbaceous plants during the summer for some good brooding. But then it's also, when I'm walking through it, I'm like a seal swimming through the water. I got to crawl and slither my way through it because it is so thick. So yeah, it's just, it unlocks, Erich mentioned having a ceiling. It just unlocks an entirely new perspective, for your property, but a little deeper than that, just to the natural world. You learn so much more about, and, again, if we're honest with ourselves, deer, a lot of the management we do is for deer hunting, which is fine. It's why I do a lot of what I do. To this day, I don't think of rough grouse as a game species. I've never went on a grouse hunt. I've never shot one. I have no intention to. I'd like to, but it's not a priority for me. So it's, when I'm walking my property or doing grouse management, it's really, not to sound like I'm, holier than thou, but it's just really pure. It's holistic. It's not a selfish type of management that I'm doing. When I'm doing deer management, it's a little selfish. I want to put a food plot here or a water hole here so I can put my blind here so they don't smell me so I can shoot them. And that's fine. We should all do. That's part of it. But when I'm doing it for grouse, it's just, I have no expectations. It's just really free, it's just exciting and pure.
Here's another good way to answer your question that you asked a while ago. Yeah. Sorry, Jared. We take over. You can leave now. You can go. We got this from here. Yeah. Is Jared even on here? Anyway, I'm a deer guy. I mean, I made a living off of whitetail deer management. The passion I have for whitetail deer is insane, and it's still there. Cody, when I met him, he was obsessed more than I was. It's like, my gosh, and if for the people that are listening, like, I don't know why we're talking about grouse, today. It's just, but what you're having deer guys that opened up the world to a species that I had no connection with. I really didn't. Cody didn't have a connection with. To this day, I still don't know how we got here. I still like, how did we get here? I'm a deer guy. Cody's a deer guy. You're a deer guy, and it's funny how you get so excited about seeing a grouse. Like, there for a while, on knowing that Cody was getting into like the grouse stuff, I would send him, deer cam photo of a grouse on the log. And he was like, and now we're sending it like we're sending 180-inch buck pictures to, like, yeah, we're showing grouse porn instead of deer porn. When somebody whips out a phone and is showing me their deer, like, hey, look what I got on my property. I'm whipping it out, showing a grouse photo. Like, here, I'll show the video of the grouse in slow motion drumming. That's what it's exciting. It's not saying that you don't force it. It's going to be created because your whole world just opens up to everything. It's like what true conservation truly is. We wear that badge of honor, and we all should, and rightfully so. But when you learn so much more about forest health, you're learning so much more about your habitat on your property that you had no idea. I had no idea, and it's exciting. It really is, that when you open up, you take the blinders off, and you realize, like, yeah, grouse is just a poster child. They're just the vehicle that we're using to produce forest health and forest awareness. Like, we need to start logging. We need to support the forester community and everything, and a trickle down effect from that. So, but anyway.
Well, that's what well said again, guys, and that's what I think was interesting about your campaign. You had I want to talk about the GoFundMe and the billboard. When the billboard, yeah, it has a picture of a grouse on it, but it's more talking about logging and forestry and the importance of that. I guess explain kind of why that's your billboard, and then how people can help if they'd like. But I guess maybe it was just kind of like, oh, interesting. There's more, a huge logging focus on the billboard for the grouse campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did this billboard campaign, which is still going on, and it's an idea Eric and I had for a couple years. I don't know when it first became an idea, but it was our billboard is in response to a campaign by the World Wildlife Federation. Eric was up in Ohio, 2-3 years ago, getting gas at the gas station. And he called me right after, and there was a billboard by the World Wildlife Federation. It was a big picture of a tree that said, "Love it or lose it." And, the World Wildlife Federation, they're a conservation organization. I think they do some good throughout the globe, but in their "Love It or Lose It" campaign, I think there's a billboard with a Bengal tiger and some endangered marine life. So it's a part of this bigger campaign, well-intentioned. But the "Love It or Lose It" with a picture of a tree was a very anti-logging, anti-forest management, anti-timber harvesting message. And Eric called me and told me about it. And then, one thing led to another. It's like, yeah, like why, just as easily as they can put up theirs, why should we not put up ours? And, again, this was an idea we had for a while. And then our Give for Grouse initiative is new, with a month old, and we kind of saved the timing of it all so this could be our first official project. And we partnered with a local nonprofit called the Appalachian Habitat Association to put up our own billboard here in the Allegheny Highlands, where I'm from, which logging is the number one driving economic force where I'm at. There's a hardwood pulp and paper mill that's been here for generations of my family has worked there. Everybody in our community, they have or have had family that works at the mill, or they have or have had family that logs or hauls logs. And that's not, specific to where I'm at. That's life in Appalachia from, Western North Carolina up to East Central Ohio, where Eric's at. That's the Appalachian lifestyle. So our billboard was kind of to put our feet down in response to WWF's campaign and say, hey, you are allowed to have your opinion and say what you want to say, but we're going to say what we want to say. And, logging, you take it out of, the world. Our world looks different, but especially life in Appalachia. And, we made a short film to promote it and kind of tied it all together, saying that the story of Appalachia is a story of the rough grouse, and the story of the rough grouse is a story of timber cutters and loggers in Appalachia. You take one off the landscape and the other goes. If there's no logging, there's no grouse. So, we wanted to make our stand and advocate for the logging industry and the logging community. Logging, to the outside world is a bad word. Even if you hear it in our circle, the word clear cut, what comes to mind? Like moonscape, it's not pretty. So part of our campaign was and part of what we're doing with the Give for Grouse initiative is to kind of change the narrative on how people view forest management and logging, and using the rough grouse as that poster child to say, hey, in defense of a lot of people, they just don't know. You only know what you know. Ignorance is bliss, and ignorance isn't a bad thing. It's an opportunity to learn. People, they think of logging as being greedy or destruction or whatever, when, it's the opposite of that. It's a culture, it's a lifestyle, it's livelihood for a lot of people, and it creates life for so many different wildlife species. I mean, in our part of the world in Appalachia, young forest, early successional is a microcosm of the habitat on a landscape scale. However, the vast majority of our wildlife need early successional or young forest. They need mature open woodlands as well, but the majority of our wildlife need early successional and young forest, and yet there is none. And so, using rough grouse is the poster child to say, hey, this is a species whose populations are declining, whose habitat is dwindling. The solution is clear as day. It's black and white. It's logging, responsible logging. And, logging these days, it's so regulated and surgical and precise. The machines that they use, track cutters, feller bunchers, I mean, they move wood quickly with minimal soil disturbance, and the processes how foresters cruise and take inventory and collect data. It's so scientific. And the result is life for economies, for species, for communities. So all that to say, that's what the billboard represents. It's this positive message for, yeah, rough grouse. But you take logging out of the picture for so many communities, rural communities, especially in Appalachia, but not exclusive to here. Michigan is big timber industry up there, and across the Southeast as well. Take out the rough grouse and substitute a bobwhite quail. The message remains the same. It's just, given those species that need a voice and support, and the logging industry, which needs, support as much as they can get, giving them that support as well.
Yeah. Plus, it's time that we start propping up these people. They're the Aldo Leopolds too, the logging community, from the foresters to the loggers, the log truck drivers. I would even go as far as the furniture makers. You got to put, what do you got? The paper mill workers. They're all making a difference for wildlife. And this billboard is a conversation starter, to let people know. And it's like Cody said, you only know what you know. Ignorance is bliss. Real quick story. I had to give a seminar, fill in for somebody, and I was like, "What's the topic?" He goes, "It's whatever you want." I'm like, "Okay, okay." So there was 22 people, sitting in front of me. They had purple hair. They weren't me. Let's just put it that way. They were not my crowd. And I'm like, "Well, that son of a bitch set me up, man." Yeah, okay. So I looked around the room and I was like, in a show of hands, how many people love wildlife? And every single one of them obviously rose their hand. Like, well, look, we have something in common. Let's say I was going to, the next question is, let's say I was going to go to Mohican State Forest, which is a local forest, and I was going to go in there and do some selective cutting and also some chip cutting and clear cutting. How many people, and let's be honest, this is an honest conversation, would want to just string me up? And all 22 rose their hand. And I said, wait a minute. I thought you loved wildlife. 60 to 70% of wildlife needs early successional young forms. I thought you said you loved wildlife. That was the conversation. And by the end, they were asking questions. Of course, you have some that draw the line. No, I'm not crossing that. But majority of those people at the end of the seminar thanked me because they had no idea. And that's what this billboard is. It's a conversation like, hey, the logging community, that includes the foresters. We see you. We see you. You're going to have a voice from here on out as long as Cody and I are breathing, and we hope people like yourselves, which I know you will, you'll jump on board and start promoting it in your own way. Who cares who gets credit for this? We're past that time. There's wildlife that are suffering. So no, it's exciting. This billboard, it's funny. It's like, it's just like everything else. I'm sure you and Al and others who you talk like, hey, we'd like to do this, we'd like to do that. And finally, this is happening. And I'm so used to living in a world where you have a meeting to have another meeting. And next thing you know, Cody's like, oh, this is happening. I'm like, what? And next thing you know, we got a billboard up in the state of Virginia. And I am so proud of it. Cody's so proud of it that, like, hey, this is the first step. This is exciting for so much more than just a grouse, because it is bigger than just a grouse. So,
well said. Well said. And is this billboard actually physically up right now?
Mm-hmm. It is. We are. Cool. We put it up. It's been up a couple of weeks now. Again, we partnered with AHA, Appalachian Habitat Association, which was the perfect partner, because they're a local group too. So, this whole community effort, it's something a lot of people in our community, I think, could or should be proud of. So the billboard is up and we're paying for it, or, the billboard's up and paid for, and then we're fundraising retroactively. So there is if you're interested, would love for you to donate. Obviously, that's not possible for everybody, especially this time of year, but The landing page for the whole campaign is habitatva.org. And that'll redirect you to the Appalachian Habitat Association's website, where there's our video where you can donate. And there's more information about young forest, about habitat management, about early successional. And again, if anybody's interested to learn more or to donate, it is habitatva.org is the landing page where you can go and donate if you are willing and able, which would be certainly appreciated. But if not, then, the donations are certainly how we'll get it paid for. But, this message and movement is however you can help, for sure. Help share the video or the message or the website, or just, people ask us, what's the Give for Grouse initiative all about? Well, it's in the name. Give for Grouse. Advocate, spread awareness, have a conversation with somebody who may not know about the benefits of logging or forest management or about rough grouse. That is something that I have taken on personally this year, that anybody I can get in their ear about, especially rough grouse, I'm just chirping away. And sometimes it sticks. Sometimes they don't care. And not everybody has to. I love deer and grouse. I do not give a damn about a turkey. I don't know what it is. They don't move the needle for me. I know,
Jared. I can't. I've been. It's so many years. They do nothing for me. I don't get it. I mean, I love them. I like to film them. I love to hear them gobble. He doesn't like kids either. So let's just say
but it's planting a seed. We've talked about that. It's just planting a seed as far as grouse or logging or whatever. And for some people it takes and grows, and for some people it doesn't, and doesn't have to for everybody. But that's what we're ultimately trying to do, is to plant a seed for a species and an industry that needs support and a voice.
It's when we talk about grouse, Cody and I, to people, and it's the beginning of the video too, that you'll see if you watch it. Cody has these pop-ups and everyone's saying something like, well, 20 years ago, we used to have grouse. And Cody and I hear all the same negativity comments, and rightfully so. Like, yeah, I used to hear them. And it's always, as soon as you mention grouse, they're not doing it on purpose, but they say something negative and not intentional. And it's like, whether it's chronic wasting disease, EHD, the rough grouse situation, or other wildlife species that, have an issue, the days we have to stop talking about the problem. It's like, well, yeah, they used to be here. Well, how do we solve the problem? It's action time. We need action. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. Billboard. Is it a grain of sand on a beach? We're not naive. Yes. Yeah. Is it going to move the needle? I hope it does, Yeah. But at the same time, more and more people we get involved in. I don't care that you don't care about a grouse. I care about you caring about young forest and forest health, because the grouse will be the benefactor of that.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. And it's like, it's time for action. It's no more time of, well, yeah, that's the problem. Let's concentrate on the problem. No, enough. We need action. It's time for that.
I like it. And that's why I wanted to get you guys on here. I think the synergistic relationship between grouse and whitetail is obvious with logging and early successional habitat. So glad to get you guys on, and hopefully some of our thousands of listeners will find a common goal here at habitatva.org. Looks like you guys are halfway to your goal. So I urge everybody to check that out. And, really great catching up with you guys. Your podcast as well. I saw that on there. Let's shout the podcast out so people can hear more banter between you two, if they like.
Yeah, like I said, we just started that up. We're 3 episodes old, and the Give for Grouse initiative is like a month old. So check out the podcast if you get a chance. We, leading up to Christmas, we have better, grouse biologists and foresters. I'm, as you guys mentioned, I'm like a moth to a flame to all this stuff. Selfishly, I'm excited to have foresters on to learn about not just the wildlife side of it. When you really start to unpack it, how nuanced forest management and forestry really is. I mean, we the three of us sit here and talk and say, let's log our woods for wildlife, like super. But that's like 5% of it. Where's the wood going? What's it being used for? What's the market? What's influencing the market? What drives this species to be profitable right now, but let's leave this species for 10 years. I think
That's
it's really cool. So, we got some foresters and some biologists plan to, like Erich said, 26 will really hit the ground running and start flooding your phones with content. But Give for Grouse initiative, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you followed us from the Deer Hunter Project, you still do. We just changed the name. But if you're new, just search Give for Grouse and podcast. Yep, we're there, here, there, and everywhere.
And thanks, Jared, for having us on. I mean, we can only do
course.
so much, Cody and I. And I'm not just saying it to say it. We do appreciate you. We do respect what you guys are doing. With ByLife Seed, the whole gamut. It is so impressive. It's a heck of a story that what you guys have done and created, and to be able to spread our message on, our audience.
Yep.
It just, we needed an avenue to talk about what we know. Yeah, hopefully we can do something for you. And I don't know what that is. Cody can come up and wash your car. I don't
do something. I'll spray your stilt grass.
All right, there you go.
Don't, dude. It's a sickness. It's a sickness. It's like there's certain times a year where you don't hear from Cody. During the rut, my wife will say, "You hear from Cody?" No, he's got a girlfriend or he's in the tree stand. And then summertime, like, you hear from Cody? No, you don't hear him. And why? He has a still backpack sprayer strapped to his back, and he's just spraying.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love
certain
it.
times of year you don't hear from Cody. So
either way, thanks for the kind words. I consider you guys friends. You are. It's
Absolutely.
great to even just catch up, even if we didn't have a reason to talk. But this is great. I want to hear more in the future. We're gonna have, I think, Cody on again and dive into your Virginia property a little more in detail coming up. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you have a Merry Christmas. So
Yes, sir.
Likewise.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you for tuning in to the Habitat Podcast. We really do appreciate you guys coming back every week to get this awesome Habitat content. And we would appreciate it if you went to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to this podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. That helps us continue to grow and trend in the right direction, attract new listeners, and help us provide better content in the future. Guys, we have a website full of resources. We have a blog on the website. We have YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all linked up at habitatpodcast.com. Our land plan services, merchandise, decals, hats, t-shirts, and I give away a free 5-inch decal to anyone who leaves us a review on Apple iTunes. Really appreciate it. I want to thank our partners, Downburst Cedars, Vitalize Seed Company, Morse Nursery, Packer Max Cultipackers, Stealth Outdoors, First Light Latitude Outdoors, United Country Midwest Lifestyle Properties. Thanks again, guys. We'll be back next week with another great episode of the Habitat Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.